All right, guys, this is Paul Singh, Market Speculator, with the weekly swing trade report for September 18th. Saturday morning, let's wrap up the week. It wasn't a great one for SPY, as you can see here. We've basically been pulling back. We made an all-time high here on the 2nd of September, and here, 17th of September, we've had a pretty significant pullback here. Pulling back from about 453, 454, all the way down to the 441 range. And what is significant is we blew through the 9 EMA, tried to remount it a few times during the week, and I was actually pretty confident that we could do it here. But we did not, and the failure here not only failed at the 9, but we are testing the 50-day moving average now, and actually Friday closed below that level, which is a significant level. Now, a couple of things to note. During the week, almost all of these days, we opened strong and closed weak, which is not a good sign for a market. There are some market breadth issues in terms of underlying strength in the market. But every time we've had these fears, every time we've had these issues, going back to the pandemic low, it ends up being a really good buy opportunity. So probably the way we want to be looking at it, even though we have some issues here. One is slowing of trend. We're seeing more and more quick tests of that 50-day moving average, even though they do get bought up, almost every one of these. And when we do violate, remount very quickly. But market breadth is an issue. And we have September seasonality. September tends not to be the greatest month. It's one of the worst months for the market. So considering those things, really good time to be cautious. Take a position or two if you like it, mix in some shorts maybe, or just be more in cash. But a good time to lay back, see what happens, and there'll always be a good time later to jump in aggressively. So that's where we are at with the Qs, or the SPY, and then the Qs here. Pretty much the same thing, although we're not quite at the 50-day moving average yet. Looks like we are going to end up testing that level, which also corresponds with a really strong support range. So I wouldn't be surprised next week if we pull back to the 50-day moving average and then start to bounce. So basically next week is all about these 50-day moving averages, and even IWM is still above it, but it hasn't been on a trend. It's essentially range bound, and it's in the worst spot, which is in the middle of the range. So basically all of 2021 IWM, which we can think of as small caps here, has been in this low range here of about 207, high range here of around 234, and has basically been bouncing back and forth and really doing nothing. Hopefully we're set up for a continuation pattern and not a topping pattern here. But middle of the range is not where you want to be. So IWM here, kind of mixed signals. But anyway, at least above the 50-day moving average. So again, this is the theme for next week. Watch these 50-day moving averages. What does the market do? And historically, at least going back to March 2020, these have been buying opportunities. So we'll keep that in mind with a kind of cautious mindset. Now, let's look at some areas we should be looking at. We're going to look at industries and sectors, ETFs. And these are some of the top performers over last week. Number one, XLE Energy. Energy here has been weak since May when it looked like we were breaking out here. And I thought we were going to really run here. We had the nice bottoming formation, cup and handle, potential continuation pattern. And I was looking at maybe this thing can run all the way up to 70. Didn't do that, has actually pulled back, but now has held the 50-day moving average, remounted, or held the 200-day moving average, remounted the 50-day moving average, and is showing relative strength to the market. So watching energy very closely, a lot of good energy stocks. If we just look at XLE, very similar patterns. And, I would look at the stocks that are doing better than what XLE is, like EOG is a nicer pattern. We are actually in SM here. Let's pull that one up. A couple of days ago when XLE was up like 1.5 or 2%, SM was up about 12%. You can see how strong it is, how far it is above the 50-day moving average, showing relative strength here. We are targeting the top of the range here around 26, 27. So a lot of good energy stocks. Definitely make a list of energy stocks that you're watching. Oil here, very similar pattern. Electric and solar here. Here's TAN, the solar ETF. Overall, it kind of looks like a topping pattern, but at least last week was showing relative strength, and there are some good looking stocks. This area is led by FSLR. This is the one that is showing the most relative strength. Looks much better than the sector ETF or industry ETF, and is actually about to test a recent high here. So we're seeing some relative strength in some of these. Some of the others aren't looking quite as strong. I'd probably only touch the ones that are above the moving average, which out of this list, maybe Nova is getting close. And then, of course, FSLR, if it puts in a good setup. So there's TAN, there's cloud and software. So here's the cloud ETF, here's software. These things have been leading tech, while tech has been kind of weak over the last 5 days. Software and cloud has been, at least some stocks have been showing some relative strength. So I would definitely investigate here. What's interesting here is Zoom has been getting crushed. Looks like a topping pattern. You can see the range we are watching very closely to see if this breaks down from. But while the market did really bad on Friday, Zoom actually bounced, and a number of these potential topping patterns, like Zoom, like TDoc here, a lot of these from home type things from the pandemic are looking a lot like topping patterns, but they actually had a good Thursday and Friday. So we'll keep an eye on there. I'm looking for these bounces to fail so we can get some good short setups. But definitely be watching software. Chewy is another one here. And then, of course, there are some that are showing a lot of relative strength off the top of my head. I'm having trouble actually remembering a few of them. But MDB was one, had really good earnings here. There we go. Broke 2 highs, had earnings, and is actually now at the top of its earnings range as well. So definitely one you should be watching there. So we have software, we have cloud, IPO stocks. And here's an IPO ETF that was up 0.25% while the market was down 1.3%. But a lot of good IPO stocks, momentum stocks, some of them might be kind of junk stocks, but they're moving right now. And here's a list of an IPO list I keep. And then here are some, you can see ASAN. Look at this move here while the market's getting crushed. Look at global e-online. And actually, online retail has been strong. Look at this thing bouncing off the 50-day moving average upwork. Haven't even paid attention to this one for a while, but remounting the 50-day moving average. We are in RVLV, which is online retail. And you can see here remounting the 50-day moving average. So definitely be paying attention to IPOs, and that leads to online retail. Here's a good ETF, iBuy. Overall, technically, maybe the ETF's pattern doesn't look that great, but there are some good stocks within here. As we said, Upwork, OSTK, if it remounts the moving averages, a bunch of others in here. And of course, there's Amazon and some of the other big guys in here as well. So I would definitely investigate online retail stocks. And then finally, we've been talking about airlines for a while. Haven't had that really big move after this run in late 2020. We've basically been pulling back 2021. But maybe this is a bottom here, and again, had a good week while the market was going down. So market is going down like this for at least for the last 3-4 days. Jets has been going up like this. Jets is the ETF. And then you can see a bunch of the airline stocks in here. We are in AAL, and we're obviously wanting to see a remount of these moving averages. And those are really only 3 positions we're in right now. Last week, I can't remember which stock, we took a small loss in one of the stocks, and we took profits in Apple before Apple pulled back. That was obviously good timing. We can take a look at Apple here. And we took profits up in here, have had a pullback since. Now, let's actually, I wasn't going to do this, but let's look at some of the big tech stocks as well. Apple here coming into a very important range for it, which is the old high here. Went through the 50-day moving average. They had their event last week, and obviously that didn't help the stock at all, but I think this is an important range. Netflix has been showing relative strength with the big techs or the FANG stocks. You can see here we did have a pullback last week, but now remounting the 9 EMA. Amazon, really interesting here. If it can get back up over the old high here, which it's getting close to, so around 35.50, somewhere in there, which could very well happen next week. All right, guys, that's a weekly swing. Remember, you can join the swing report. Here's the chat room. Here's the report video that comes out every day. You can go to Bulls on Wall Street and go to part-time trading, swing trading, and sign up there if you're interested. Otherwise, contact me anytime. And you guys know I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and next week we will have another weekly swing. And I will probably get back to doing a few of the coffee and stocks with Paul on some Saturday and Sunday mornings as well.